Alright. Camera's freaking out here, but I did some adjustments on my light here, so hopefully you can kind of see what the tank looks like to me, because I don't have one of those filters. But here's my 40 gallon reef that I built on a very tight budget. Got some buckets over here, some RO. Don't have an ATO yet, but we'll get there. So this tank is probably about a year old now. I had a little bit of a habit where I was like buying a bunch of fish, and I was like, man, I want this thing to be like a community tank, you know, a few corals, yeah, but I wanted like a bunch of smaller fish and maybe like a big fish or something like that to kind of keep everybody in check. And ended up just not having the filtration and the water volume for any of that, so we decided to take a few steps back. Plus this tank was moved about a month ago, so some of the corals have suffered from that. This branch in Duncan here, not looking too hot. He usually looks better, it's just I just did a water change, so he's not too happy. And then we have the torch, and that was one of my first corals. Bought it as a single headed torch, and it has branched into 3. Lost a head not too long ago. We got toadstool. He's got some really cool guys growing on the bottom of him. They look like anemones, but they're like orange something. I can't remember what they're called, but they're pretty cool. Got these guys, don't know what those are. And then a bunch of this stuff. And that was one of my first corals. Was I had a small rock about this big that had a couple of them heads on it. Glued that onto this larger rock. Oh, the side's really dirty. And it started growing up. And then eventually, right there is where the rock was glued to that rock, and it just fell off. And I set it over here, and now it's taking over that rock as well. It's just a stack of rocks and some sand, a couple corals. Nothing too crazy. Sand bed is really clean right now. But I have a single AI Prime 16 on a flex mount. We have a set of power heads. These are kind of just some used ones I bought off Facebook. I really wanted the ones that had the motor and the wire on the outside of the tank, but these are great. They work just fine. Controllers are down in the base. The doors do not line up because I bent the hinges a little bit, so now they don't line up, but who cares. Have a little bit of hair algae, but I don't get really any coloration on the sand. And I clean this up every once in a while. Just it kind of keeps the nitrates and phosphates in check, because this is ran off of 2 canister filters. It does not have a sump or refugium right now. Sun coral. We got a long spine urchin, Wyoming white clown, and a just regular Ocellaris clown in the back there. The Wyoming white is actually an Ocellaris as well. We have 2 8-inch engineered gobies in the back that I spent a lot of time in. Another thing about that I didn't really realize at first was your rock work, you have to place that on the bottom of the tank, then add your sand. Engineers can dig the sand out and rock can land on them. So when we moved the tank, we bought all new sand. We just put all the rocks in a bucket, did about 60% water change in the process of moving, new sand bed, new bacteria, and I made sure I put all the rocks in. Now this one is not sitting on the rock on the bottom of the tank, and neither is that one. But all the big back ones back here that they usually stay with are on the floor of the tank. See, I've kind of like got like this little area back in here. It kind of limits the space in the front of the tank, but that's more important for the fish to have a nice calm area that they can go and hide. I thought about getting some frost and adding some frost over here so that they don't notice everything moving next to them. The back of the tank just has some black craft paper taped to the back. That's just to keep, make it look a little bit better. believe that's an aqua top heater. Nothing too crazy, but it does have a guard because we have urchins and we used to have a starfish. I have a goby in here somewhere, not the engineer. Can't remember the name of this one, but he's in here somewhere. I just got him today. You see, he's already been working in there cleaning the sand. The sand is very clean right now. There's a lid to the protein skimmer. That's a very small skimmer. That's for one of the biocubes, but it does pretty dang well. It doesn't actually overflow or anything usually, so see right there, just barely coming up. For filtration, we have a Penplax Cascade. I believe that's the 1000 or something. It's a very small one. Really, I need to get like the really big tall one. And then we have some aqua top canister filter here. I really like these two filters. I like some attributes to this one. I like some attributes to this one. Honestly, if I could get the hoses and some stuff and the simplicity of this one with the nice ends and everything, like this is the intake. So it intakes down here, but it also has a floating surface skimmer as well, and a control valve. Actually, I think the control valve is over here on the output, but the output has two heads there, and I'm using a glass lid that I need to trim. So I've got the input right there, the output over here, and then the input for the Penplax is right next to it, but it's a little bit further down, and it comes out to a spray bar over here. So these get cleaned pretty often, probably not as often as they should. Everything's ran to a GFCI style power strip. The light is not on the strip. It is actually on its own. It's directly plugged into the wall because this does draw quite a bit of power. Squeaky door syndrome. But yeah, the thing with this is, with running canisters, is you do have to clean those canisters out. The ceramic media or biomedia, whatever you use, you have to rinse it every single time you open that filter, about every week. And you have to rinse the bottom of the canister out. As long as you're doing that and changing your filter pads every time, you can export enough waste. Small amount of inhabitants, larger tank. I keep it pretty full. The more water in the tank, in the system I can have, the better. I did try a DIY 10-gallon Refugium along with the canister at one point, with one canister, the Cascade, and that was okay. It didn't work out too well, and yes, it does say 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. Thought that was kind of a cool idea. I tried burning it in. There's a thin layer of foam that the tank sits on. Nothing too crazy. It's all 2x4 built stand. It's very sturdy.